The shadow governments. Who really controls the world? The world believes in flags. It believes in presidents, parliaments, prime ministers, elections, and speeches broadcast under bright lights. It believes power sits in buildings made of marble and guarded by soldiers. But what if power doesn't live where we think it does? What if the true decisions shaping wars, economies, revolutions, and collapses are made in rooms the public will never see? This is not a story of conspiracy. It is a story of influence, and influence is far more powerful than control. In the heart of Washington, D.C., laws are debated beneath the dome of the United States Capitol. Cameras roll, speeches are recorded, votes are cast. But outside the chamber, something else happens. Lobbyists draft language before lawmakers ever read it. Think tanks publish reports that quietly shape policy direction. Private donors decide which campaigns survive. By the time a bill reaches the floor, its spine may have been built elsewhere. In London, near the historic halls of Bank of England, financial decisions ripple across continents. Currency values shift. Interest rates change, markets tremble. Central banks are independent by design, but independence is a curious word. Independent from voters, not independent from global financial networks. In New York City, the towering screens of New York Stock Exchange flash numbers in endless motion. Markets do not vote, yet markets can overthrow policies. A government may promise reform, but if capital flees, if bonds collapse, if investors panic, that reform dies quietly. Power does not always need tanks. Sometimes it only needs leverage. History gives us examples. In 1953, Iran's Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh attempted to nationalize oil. Soon after, intelligence operations from the Central Intelligence Agency and the MI6 helped orchestrate his removal. Publicly, Iran changed leaders. Quietly, energy interests were protected. Governments move, but sometimes other hands guide them. During the Cold War, two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, stood face to face. Yet beyond speeches and threats, intelligence agencies, defense contractors, and covert alliances shaped the battlefield in shadows. Weapons were funded not only by fear, but by profit. Conflicts were sustained not only by ideology, but by industry. The military-industrial complex, once warned about by President Dwight Eisenhower, blurred the line between defense and business. When war becomes economic, peace becomes complicated. In modern times, technology has created a new form of invisible influence. Silicon Valley companies like Google and Meta platforms control algorithms that shape what billions of people see, believe, and share. Information is the new territory. Control the feed, and you influence perception. Influence perception, and you influence elections. No tanks, no coups, just data. International institutions also play a role. The International Monetary Fund and the World Bank provide loans to struggling nations, but loans come with conditions. Austerity measures, privatization, structural reforms. Sometimes these policies stabilize economies. Sometimes they trigger unrest. In either case, sovereignty becomes negotiable. Debt is one of the most silent forms of control. And then there are private gatherings. The World Economic Forum meets annually in Davos. World leaders, CEOs, central bankers, and intellectuals gather to discuss global challenges. There are no secret rituals, but there are closed-door conversations. Partnerships form, strategies align. When political leaders and corporate giants share a table, the line between public service and private interest can blur. So who really controls the world? Is it elected governments, financial institutions, corporations, intelligence agencies? The answer is more complex than any single villain. Power today is a network, a web of incentives. Governments need funding, corporations need regulation, banks need stability, media needs access. Each depends on the other. No single hidden ruler sits on a throne. Instead, influence circulates among elite circles where money, information, and policy intersect. This is not about a secret world order pulling every string. It is about structural power. Systems that reward certain interests, networks that protect themselves. Decisions made in boardrooms that shape what parliaments later approve. The real question is not, is there a shadow government? The real question is, how transparent is power? How accountable are those who influence it? And how aware are we of the forces shaping our reality? Because control rarely announces itself. It operates in complexity, in legal language, in economic policy, in data algorithms, in quiet agreements. The world is not ruled by a single shadow. It is shaped by overlapping shadows. And understanding that is the first step towards clarity. The second step is vigilance. The third is participation. Because even in a world of hidden influence, public awareness remains the most powerful force of all. The world believes in visible power. It believes in flags rising at sunrise, in national anthems echoing across stadiums, in elections broadcast live, in leaders shaking hands beneath chandeliers. We are taught that power has an address, a parliament, a palace, a congress, a presidency. But history whispers something more complicated. Power does not always sit where cameras point. Sometimes it sits where cameras are not allowed, and sometimes it does not sit at all. It moves. In Washington, D.C., beneath the dome of the United States Capitol, legislation is debated as if democracy is a performance of voices. But long before a bill reaches the floor, language has been shaped elsewhere. Policy drafts circulate through think tanks funded by private donors. Lobbying firms meet lawmakers behind closed doors. Campaign contributions quietly determine who even has the opportunity to vote on that bill. Influence enters the bloodstream of governance before law ever reaches the public stage. This is not illegal, it is structural, and structure can be more powerful than secrecy. In London, decisions made within the walls of the Bank of England can ripple across continents. Central banks operate independently to protect monetary stability, but independence from elected officials means something profound. Monetary power is shielded from voters. Interest rates rise, borrowing becomes expensive, small businesses close, unemployment shifts, all without a public referendum. Is that shadow control? Or is it technocratic necessity? The line is thin. In New York City, within the financial nerve center of the New York Stock Exchange, numbers determine the fate of governments. When markets crash, leaders fall. When investors withdraw confidence, currencies collapse. Political ideology matters less than market confidence. Governments must satisfy voters, but they must also satisfy bond markets, and bond markets do not vote. History offers sharper shadows. In 1953, Iran's Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh nationalized oil. Shortly after, intelligence services from the CIA and MI6 intervened. A coup unfolded. Public leadership changed. Strategic interests remained secure. This event was not mythology, it was documented. It demonstrated something critical. Nations can appear sovereign, while external influence reshapes outcomes. Power sometimes acts through invisibility. During the Cold War, the rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union was framed as ideological destiny: capitalism versus communism, freedom versus control. But beneath ideology lay defense contracts, intelligence alliances, proxy wars, and covert funding. President Eisenhower warned of the military-industrial complex. He understood that when defense industries profit from conflict, war acquires economic gravity. If peace threatens profit, peace becomes fragile. Not because of evil masterminds, but because incentives shape behavior, and incentives are powerful shadows. Then came the digital age. Companies like Google and Meta platforms do not command armies, they command attention. Algorithms determine which stories rise, which outrage trends, which voices amplify, which disappear. Billions scroll daily, unaware that invisible code curates their reality. Data became currency, behavior became commodity, influence became automated. Elections today are not only fought in debates, they are fought in feeds. The battlefield is psychological, and it is personalized. International financial institutions add another layer. The International Monetary Fund and the World Bank provide lifelines to struggling economies, but lifelines often come attached to conditions. Austerity, privatization, fiscal restructuring. Governments in crisis must choose between default and compliance. Is this coercion or financial discipline? The answer depends on perspective. But one truth remains: debt shifts leverage, and leverage is power. Then there are global forums. At the annual meetings of the World Economic Forum in Davos, political leaders and corporate executives gather. No laws are passed, no votes are cast, but relationships are formed. Strategic alignments emerge. Public-private partnerships take shape. When corporations influence policy frameworks before they reach national debate, influence precedes democracy. Again, not illegal, not secret in the cinematic sense, but opaque. And opacity breeds suspicion. So what is a shadow government? It is not a single secret council ruling from underground bunkers. It is not a single mastermind. It is something more complex, a network, an ecosystem of power where financial systems pressure governments, corporations shape policy through funding and access, intelligence agencies operate beyond public visibility, media narratives influence perception, technology platforms shape cognition itself. Power today is decentralized but interconnected. It flows between institutions. Boardrooms influence ministries. Think tanks influence legislation. Donors influence elections. Algorithms influence beliefs. The public sees outcomes, rarely the architecture. But here is the deeper layer. Control does not require conspiracy. It requires alignment of interests. If corporate profit aligns with regulatory policy, no secret meeting is required. If military spending sustains economic growth in certain regions, conflict becomes economically entangled. If media revenue depends on polarization, division becomes profitable. Systems self-reinforce. Shadows become structural. Yet we must resist oversimplification. Believing in a single hidden puppet master is comforting. It reduces complexity. But reality is far more intricate. Power structures compete internally. Elites disagree. Institutions clash. Corporations rival each other. Intelligence agencies pursue conflicting agendas. The world is not controlled by a single hidden hand. It is shaped by overlapping power centers negotiating constantly. That negotiation, often invisible to the public, is what shapes the world. So who really controls the world? Not one government, not one corporation, not one secret society. Control belongs to those who influence systems, those who shape money flows, those who control information, those who design legal frameworks, those who engineer technological architecture, and those who operate at the intersection of all three. The most powerful force in the modern world is not military strength. It is narrative. Control the story, shape the perception, guide the reaction. If people believe something is inevitable, they accept it. If markets believe something is unstable, they flee. If citizens believe something is true, they vote accordingly. Perception directs behavior. Behavior directs outcomes, and outcomes shape history. But here is the final truth. Power thrives in darkness. Accountability thrives in light. The question is not whether shadow influence exists. It always has. Empires, monarchies, oligarchies, industrial magnates, history is full of them. The real question is, how transparent are our systems? How independent is our media? How informed are our citizens? Because even the most powerful networks depend on public acceptance. Withdraw legitimacy and systems tremble. Demand transparency and shadows shrink. The world is not ruled by darkness alone. It is shaped by the balance between influence and awareness. And awareness is the one force no shadow can permanently suppress.